Channel open. Welcome back to WeeklyTrek, a proud member of the Tricorder Transmissions podcast network, and presented in partnership with TrekCore.com. I am your host, Alex Perry.
What's today's date? The date.
Today's show was recorded on August 5th, 2021, and is current through Star Trek Discovery Season 3, so beware of spoilers. All right, let's get into the show.
Good day, Voyager, and welcome to A Briefing with Neelix. It's a catchy title, isn't it?
WeeklyTrek is a 30-minute news show covering the biggest stories from the Star Trek franchise. We are in a new golden age of Star Trek. There are multiple television shows in production, possibly more on the way, and enough merchandise to fill the Bajoran wormhole. So stick with me, and I'll help you sort the real facts from a lot of the Dominion propaganda that you'll find online. But I can't do this alone, and my guest this week is the only person I could think to talk to the week before a major Star Trek convention. It is the co-host of the Shore Leave podcast right here on the Tricorder Transmissions podcast network, and one of the administrators of the Star Trek Convention Experiences Facebook group. It's Marina Kravchuk. Marina, welcome back to WeeklyTrek.
Thank you so much for having me back. I mean, we certainly have a lot to talk about.
Oh, yes, we do. As two people who are about to make quite a leap of faith in our trip to Las Vegas next week, I think we have plenty to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, Marina, you know the drill. I want to know something that's got you feeling excited about Star Trek at the moment. What's got you moving at Warp 10?
Most certainly the expectations for the upcoming Vegas convention. There's been so many, things happening, and the cancellations and the announcements and this and that. And for the first time, I've been doing conventions for over a decade now. It feels like I'm truly going into the unknown because I really don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
Like, even something as simple as literally taking a taxi out of the airport. It's like, how's it gonna go? What am I doing? Should I just spray the person driving me? I don't know. So, did I forget how to people? Because I haven't really spent much time with anybody in over a year and a half. But as far as the Star Trek part of it, I'm excited to see other fans. And even though we did lose pretty much most, if not all, of the international contingent that usually attends a Las Vegas convention, nevertheless, there's still going to be plenty of the usual suspects coming from all over the United States. So that's certainly something that has my heart pumping. I'm deeply into my spreadsheets and preparation lists and everything. On the other hand, on the minor side, and that's something that I mentioned to you earlier, I completely forgot that the Lower Decks premiere is upon us. So that is kind of makes the convention week doubly exciting because there's going to be a premiere of brand new Trek right in the middle of the convention week.
Oh, yes, there will be, which, with the exception of Nepenthe, which was on during the Star Trek cruise, this will be the first time, certainly for a Vegas convention, there's been a new Star Trek episode in the same week. So that will be fun. I'm sure lots of people will be accessing the Rio's Wi-Fi in order to stream on Paramount Plus on Thursday morning. Given that Creation no longer has the license, I would put the chances of them showing the episode at about 0.000%. But there are plenty of ways to get hold of it at the Rio, which will be fun. I'm looking forward to the convention. We'll get into talking more about it once we get to the convention story, since it's a solid half of our episode today. But I'm going in with no expectations. This is the first convention where I have planned nothing. I have bought nothing in advance. I'm just looking forward to seeing some people. We'll make the best of it that we can. I certainly do not begrudge anybody who has made the decision in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, not to attend. Everybody has to ultimately make the decision that they think is right for them and what they feel most comfortable with. But with a stack of KN95 masks in one hand and a stack of at-home COVID tests in the other, I ask you, Marina, what conclusion would you draw? And the conclusion is, I think I'm going to Vegas. So that's me.
Yeah, I same thing. I mean, I literally, I'm bringing a whole box of masks with me. I will have, I don't know, enough sanitizer, like I said, to just smother and spray random people. But yeah, I just hope that all these precautions certainly pay off. And again, we will talk later as far as what the convention hosts are preparing for the event. It's going to be, but it's a right way of looking at it. Like you said, no expectations, because some things you can sort of kind of guess at. I'm primarily thinking about photo ops, primarily based on what I've seen for the conventions that have gone on over the past 2 months, what they've done. So I'm expecting kind of something very similar, probably. Yeah. But everything else, same thing. I did not pre-purchase anything except for one autograph, which thankfully still stays. The guest is still confirmed and is not canceled. Everything else, I'm just whoever's going to be there that I wanted to meet, I'll do my best to do so. Otherwise, I'm just going to be probably hanging out with some familiar faces, and not to mention my own sister who's accompanying me to this trip.
Well, let me tell you something I'm feeling good about Star Trek this week, which isn't in the convention space. And no, for those of you people who've listened for the last couple of weeks, I'm not about to pick that we're a few days away from new Star Trek. Obviously, just take that as read. It's something I've not talked about on this show, but I've been really enjoying. So I wanted to make sure that I did not pass the whole season of it by and not say anything. And that's that I have been really enjoying Gates McFadden's podcast, in which she interviews other Star Trek actors and talks to them about literally anything other than Star Trek. She's talked to Brent Spiner, LeVar Burton, and our visitor, Michael Dorn. I just listened to the Marina Sirtis episode, and Jonathan Frakes was the first guest. And there are these fascinating interviews. I think it's called like Investigates. Who do you think you are? Investigates, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's basically just her like talking to these people, and they have this shared experience, either because they work directly on The Next Generation or because they have that sort of shared Star Trek experience, but honestly about literally anything other than the show itself, which is great because you get an opportunity to learn more about these people and their upbringings and who they are beyond just your favorite character from your favorite TV show. And I think Gates is a fabulous interviewer, very charismatic, extremely personable, puts her guests at ease, manages to kind of talk to them about sometimes some really serious, heavy stuff. And overall, I think it's fabulous. And so I've been really enjoying that. So that's why I'm feeling good about Star Trek this week. Marina, I assume you've been listening to this one, right?
And what's more is like for someone who wants to check it out, some of the episodes, she just had so much to cover that it actually comes in two parts. Like the one that she's done with Will Wheaton. It's Will Wheaton Part 1, Will Wheaton Part 2. She covers a lot of topics, and yeah, be prepared because she has very serious conversations, specifically like if we're talking about the Nana Visitor episode, for instance. Right. So this is not ha like you said, Trek is practically not there, but everything else is quite extraordinary. So it's certainly a very unique project, and a great addition to everything that's Trek related in our fandom, or I should say like Trek related things outside of our fandom. Although I the way I look at it, everything can be connected to Star Trek. So she's doing something. It's Star Trek.
Oh, of course it's Star Trek. Of course it's Star Trek. Absolutely. All right. Well, with that, let's turn to the week's top stories.
There's a war going on, and I'm a reporter.
Alex Kurtzman, who has been officially at the helm of the Star Trek franchise since 2018, will remain in that position until 2026 under a new $160 million extension to his 5-year contract with Viacom CBS. The $160 million deal for Kurtzman, which extends his original 5-year deal by an additional 3 years, is a significant increase from the $25 million development contract he signed with CBS in 2018. $1 million here, $1 million there. Eventually, you start talking about real money. I guess $100 million here, $100 million there. Eventually, you're talking about real money. Extending our valuable partnership with the brilliant Alex Kurtzman and Secret Hideout has been a top priority for CBS and Paramount Plus, said CBS CEO George Cheeks. Alex's vision and leadership of the Star Trek franchise and his ability to create artistic and commercial series across all platforms put him in a special class of creative talent. His substantial accomplishments at CBS and the spirit of collaboration we enjoy with his team are greatly valued, and we are excited to build on his already impressive slate far into the future. The press coverage of Kurtzman's deal extension provides only the vaguest hints about the future of the Star Trek franchise under Kurtzman's stewardship, though it does make reference to the possibility of a Starfleet Academy show, which was first talked about when Kurtzman's initial 5-year deal was announced in 2018, but we've heard nothing about since. Speaking big picture about his vision, Kurtzman said that, quote, "If it were up to me only, I would be pushing the boundaries of the Star Trek franchise much further than I think most people would want. I think we might get there. Marvel has actually proven that you can, but you have to build a certain foundation in order to get there, and we are still building our foundation." To demonstrate the kind of boundary-pushing ideas he might be open to entertaining, Kurtzman pointed to a pitch he had received from Portlandia and Silicon Valley producer Graham Wagner, reportedly centered around Worf, that was, quote, "incredibly funny, poignant, and touching." Though just because Kurtzman has heard a pitch, that does not mean we'll hear anything about the idea ever again. So no need going to ask Michael Dorn for more clarity, please, Michael. With all the new Star Trek in development that we already know about, and with everything we don't yet know about, the Kurtzman era of Star Trek is set to continue for a while longer. Marina, what's your reaction to the news that Alex Kurtzman will be at the helm of the Star Trek franchise for an additional 5 years?
I was going to say relief, but it's not really relief. It's more like just the sense of confidence that we have this stability, because certainly you cannot deny that this kind of development that we've had of the franchise over the past several years, with that much contact, high quality contact being produced, it's primarily thanks to his leadership. He's the one who assembled the teams, who then took it all out there, that wrote it, and the effects and everything that you can think of. So it's a great thing that we can not know for sure now that there's going to be a continuation, that hopefully things will be continuing, if not at the same pace, but perhaps he will push the boundaries and we'll see something even more extraordinary. At this point, it's just every time I see the listing of things that are either in production or pre-production, I get shivers down my spine, because it is phenomenal time to be a Star Trek fan. Look at all this stuff that we have, and it's primarily thanks to him. So, I was very glad to hear this. Can't say that it came as a huge shock, because obviously the series are popular. Everything that Picard and Discovery had done for Paramount Plus / CBS All Access, in terms of the business side of things, I suppose. They call him a great investment in one of the articles that I read. And he certainly is, because he has delivered. So, I'm glad to see the confirmation that, his leadership will go on.
Yeah, this is exciting news. I mean, obviously, the Kurtzman era of Star Trek is definitely not universally beloved. There are certainly people who have significant issues with it, and people who have issues, quite legitimate ones, I think, with each of the shows and things that they like and they don't like about it. But as you say, I mean, I think it communicates a note of confidence about the future of the franchise that indicates that this sort of period we've been in for the last now nearly 5 years since the premiere of Discovery in 2017, I guess we're 4 years into new Star Trek, is going to continue for at least another 5 years at this point. And all of the new shows and all of the new content and all of the new possibilities. I mean, as I said, there's not a massive hint about like what's the next big exciting reveal coming down the pike for Star Trek on television. But there's definitely enough in this article to sort of whet your appetite about the fact that he is taking pitches from people. I mean, obviously, if the Silicon Valley producer pitch about Worf was going to go anywhere, Kurtzman wouldn't have talked about it openly in a New York Times article. It probably means that that's the kind of thing we will never see in the future, but it does sort of hint at, well, what are some of the pitches that he's received that he's not telling us about? Because those are the ones that are ultimately more likely to go forward.
And to think about that, this is Star Trek, never say never. Who knows where the material with the kernel of the idea of something might pop up, especially considering that we now have such a delightful, lab for development in the form of short tracks. Maybe we'll see something with Worf in the short tracks, a couple of years down the line. We can never know for sure until it actually drops on us. So, yeah. But generally speaking, as much as we would always like to discuss Star Trek's ideals and all that, the fact that the studio has this much confidence, and again, I'm repeating that word, investment, the fact that they're continuing on into, putting that much spotlight on our beloved franchise means that things are working out rather well on, the fiscal side of things, if you will. Because if things were failing, things would not be going forward.
And you are completely right to remind us never to say never. Star Trek Picard began, the genesis for it was a short trek about Uhura. And Star Trek Picard was born from it. So who knows what could possibly be born from a situational comedy Worf pitch, right?
Yeah.
Who knows where something like that could ultimately go? Well, by the time this episode drops, we will be only a few days away from the premiere of Season 2 of Star Trek Lower Decks on Paramount Plus in the US, CTV and Crave in Canada, and Amazon Prime in multiple territories around the world. And to build excitement for the upcoming season, Viacom CBS made the core foursome of Lower Decks actors. That's Tawny Newsome, who plays Beckett Mariner, Jack Quaid, who plays Bradwood Boimler, Eugene Cordero, who plays Samantha Rutherford, and Noelle Wells, who plays Devana Tendi, available for interviews about Season 2. And in an interview published at TrekCore with Cordero and Wells, both actors talked about how their characters will grow in Season 2. I mean, the biggest development for Rutherford is that we took away some development and then we added it back in, Cordero said. For him, it's about finding out what he doesn't know, finding out some new information, and then learning to trust what he does know from the past now that he has some of that information again. About Tendy's arc in season 2, Wells said in the new season, she maybe has her bubble burst a couple of times, but because of that, she gets to sort of take herself to the next level. You'll see her pushing back a little bit more, having a little more agency, and not only taking more risks, but standing up for herself more too. The actors also teased that the dynamics from season 1, where most episodes saw Mariner paired with Boimler and Rutherford paired with Tendi, would be flipped on their head in season 2. The Boimler-Rutherford duo happens a bit, Cordero said, and there's some Mariner-Rutherford pairing too. They all mix great. And now that you see those dynamics, it just sets us up to do a million seasons so we can keep mixing it up. Wells added, we're swinging, we're swapping up the characters, there are new dynamics forming. And when asked about their thoughts about what they'd like to see from possible Rutherford and Tendi action figures when Playmates returns to releasing Star Trek toys next year, Wells said, I just hope the Tendi one is very versatile so you can make her dance and stuff, while Cordero said he wanted Rutherford to be like a wrestling buddy where he's just one big piece of immovable rubber. Marina, we are today a week away from new Lower Decks. How much are you looking forward to the premiere of Lower Decks Season 2?
Oh, I can't wait. The first season was just sheer laughter. Literally, I cannot think of any episode where it would be when I wasn't smiling as I was watching it. So I can't wait. It's such a delightful series, and it's sheer fun. So, it may be a comedic way of looking at things, but it's still pure Star Trek, so it's wonderful. I can't wait, and again, it's exciting that it happens during the convention, which I suppose is going to be a bit tricky for those who might not be able to watch it, because I'm sure that the following day, or rather during Thursday, because I'm assuming it's probably going to drop the similar at very early hours, not to hear the spoilers of people chatting about it in the corridors.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're planning to be at the 55-year mission convention next week, it's probably best that you, as quickly as possible, find a way to watch the episode, because if you're a big spoiler phobe, you probably will encounter them over the course of the day Thursday. Let's just put it this way. Every hour you spend on Thursday that you haven't watched the new Star Trek Lower Decks is 1 hour closer to being spoiled on what happens. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I've talked a lot about how much I'm looking forward to Lower Decks, so I won't belabor the point, but it's very close, and they had a cool sort of block party premiere last night as of the day that we recorded, and everybody seemed to have a good time. So I think, Lower Decks is back, and it heralds the potential for quite a long period of new Star Trek. So very much looking forward to that. Well, be aware, if you are heading to the Star Trek convention, formerly known as Star Trek Las Vegas, which we've been talking about this episode, and now known as the 55-year mission tour at the Rio Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada this week, in response to the rapid spread of the Delta variant of COVID-19, Creation Entertainment have announced new safety protocols to keep guests and attendees safe. And if you haven't heard these yet, you're going to want to hear, because there are new things that you need to do. The convention is still on, and given we are less than a week away, cancellation or postponement seems very unlikely at this point, but Creation have instituted requirements on all guests to demonstrate either proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test within 72 hours of the convention to secure entry. Unvaccinated attendees who choose to attend and provide proof of a negative COVID test will then need to undertake a second test on Friday at the convention in order to gain access to the weekend's events. Creation have said they will have a limited number, quote, a limited number of tests available on site, and have encouraged unvaccinated attendees to secure alternative testing arrangements at one of the city's many testing locations. In addition to the proof of vaccination or testing requirement, masks will be required by all attendees, that's all attendees regardless of your vaccination status, at all times while at the convention. It is still unclear what accommodations, if any, Creation will be making for photo ops, but they have indicated that they will let attendees know what safety precautions might be required for each photo when they arrive at the convention. At William Shatner's 90th birthday celebration at the Star Trek Tour last weekend, he did his photo ops with attendees from behind a plexiglass screen. I would expect the same will likely be true for many of the guests in Vegas next week, and masks may be required by some. So if you are a big photo op fan, I'm a big photo op fan. I don't have any purchase for this year. I think if you do have them or you're planning to buy them, I think you just have to recognize that if you're heading into one of those experiences, it could be quite different than what you're used to, and you should prepare yourself yourself for these social ops not being like any that you've done before, and try please to contain your disappointment. I know it will be difficult for some, but this is designed to help keep everybody safe who is participating in the convention. Marina, we've been talking about this. You're still going to the convention. I'm still going to the convention. How do the new safety protocols that Creation have announced make you feel?
Very, well, I'm going to say not so much safer, but it's certainly, I'm glad to see that all parties concerned are paying attention. It's very important. I was not too surprised to hear that they've instituted the either proof of vaccination or negative PCR test. They're not the first convention to actually do so. So that kind of like, okay, good. They're addressing the issue at hand, the circumstances at hand rather. So I'm glad to see that. We have yet to see how it's actually going to work out, because it's kind of difficult to gauge how many people will actually show up. I have to admit, I do expect the convention to be far more sparsely attended than on a normal year.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from the whole bit that I mentioned with the international attendees and not being there, but we've all seen, if you frequent any of the Trek and then Trek groups on Facebook, for instance, there are discussions of people basically dropping off for various reasons. So we shall see how that's going to work out in terms of handling the crowd, if there is even a crowd. I do entertain a hope that that the fandom is, the percentage of vaccinated is probably the majority. So that's probably going to make it easier. It's something to point out. The information has been on a very timely basis being posted on the website of the convention. So the most recent update to the COVID protocols is literally a couple of days ago, August 2nd. So, those who are listening, please keep, and if you're going, keep track of what's being posted, because they're updating. There have been concerns about the limitations of, how many tests they will actually have available, and because they don't know how many people will show up, that's the reason why it's limited, first come first served basis. But they have posted the information about the website where you can find the test, where you can do a rapid test for COVID and present them with the result. And they have noted that if you do test positive, it just so happens, you will be eligible for the refunds that you're not able to, for those days that you're not able to attend anymore. Well, I'm keeping all my fingers crossed, however many I have, so that things work out for the best. But at least, again, I'm glad to see that the protocols have been established and that the convention host is trying to address the circumstances.
Yeah, I feel really good about the addition of precautions. I mean, I certainly have been the first to criticize Creation over the last year, beginning with the situation around STLV last year and the rescheduling and the cancellation and them selling tickets to a convention everybody was sure was not going to happen. But I have been really impressed the way they have stepped up in the last week to do more than what's necessarily required by the city, right? They have the mask mandate in place because the city requires it. And, to listen to Adam Malin when he talked to the Trek Geeks a few weeks ago, before most people had really recognized what this Delta thing was going to be, and we thought, cases were going to be much, 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 much lower than they actually are. He was sort of saying, well, he didn't really think that there would be any kind of COVID precautions in place. There'd be no mask mandates. But
and how things have changed.
Right. As the news has changed, so have the requirements. And, Creation doesn't have to do a vaccination requirement. There's nothing, Las Vegas isn't telling them to do it. They are doing it themselves. And so I think we do have to give them credit for that, for sure, because that certainly has given me a level of confidence necessary to be able to say, recognizing that it's going to be a smaller convention, there's probably, honestly, not going to be a ton of people there. I'm going to see some of my friends, like you, Marina, who I haven't seen in 2 years now. And we're going to have a nice time together, and it'll be our chance to catch up, and an important getaway for both of us, I think, from the circumstances that we found ourselves in over the last 18 months since the pandemic began. But one where, I think you and I are both very conscious of what it is we're walking into and the risk that we're taking as part of that, but the precautions that we're going to take to ensure that we and our friends and everybody around us remains as safe as possible.
Absolutely. My personal expectation, I will be double masking just in case. It kind of gives me an opportunity to show off my Trek masks, so that's kind of beside the point. But generally speaking, I expect that majority of people will be, following the mandate. And they did mention that on a normal year, we have water stations, which is very welcome. Not every convention provides free water, but in this case, they will also provide sanitizer stations. So that's a very good way of, ensuring that, it's right there in your face. Use it, because who knows, people forget. Things were already starting up when we were on Star Trek cruise, and at that point the cruise host was trying to implement, don't shake hands, do the elbow bumps, and make sure to use the sanitizer. As a matter of fact, they just literally had people standing in the corridors with sanitizer bottles spraying stuff in people's hands. So that sort of attitude actually helps, because it kind of becomes part of the experience. You pass by and wash your hands. So we'll see what's gonna happen. I am curious to see what's gonna happen with the photo ops, because plexiglass seems like an obvious choice, and as I mentioned earlier, judging from pictures posted online, quite a few conventions, well, I'm making it sound like there's been a lot, but several larger conventions, there's one in Texas, I believe, people posted online. It didn't look too bad, actually. Just, of course, it's the sadness that you cannot actually, put your hand around the guest's shoulder, but, we have to remember that not every guest actually allows that to begin with. You have to respect personal space. So, but still, I'm looking forward to. There are several guests that I'm thrilled. That's going to be the first time me meeting them, and I don't know. I'm kind of, my feelings sort of like a jumble between sort of like an anxious excitement to just plain excitement, because I'll get to see my friends. So it's going to be an interesting experience.
Hey, we'll see how it goes. Despite having a certain level of trepidation about it, I am looking forward to it. I am going to have a good time, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there, Marina.
I have to mention actually something. As I mentioned, I'm a spreadsheet person, so every time I go to a convention trip that involves more than a couple of days, I usually try to, plan things as precisely as I can. And in this case, I've been looking at all our usual fan-organized events that have become fixtures of STLV over the past, say 5 years. And I thought to myself, another aspect of dealing with this circumstances of, social distancing, and how are you dealing with all these people? We will be in a sort of a bubble, which I suppose helps to a certain degree. But also I'm going to limit any kind of spontaneity, I have to say. I mean, it's always wonderful to kind of like, why don't we just go and check out the Neon Museum or something? But in this case, I'm going to be, I do window shopping at the Forum Shops, and my favorite Italian place is there. And I know I have a hangout on Friday, and I know I have a hangout with people I know on Tuesday. And I'm just gonna limit my, Las Vegas convention experience just to those specific things that I'm gonna plan ahead and, see how it goes.
I think that's smart. I think that's absolutely smart. Well, lastly this week, looking ahead to next year's Star Trek convention in Las Vegas, Nevada, tentatively titled the 56-year Mission Tour, prepare yourself for a change of venue. In an interview several weeks ago conducted by the Trek Geeks with Adam Malin, co-CEO of Creation Entertainment, Malin announced that for 2022, the longtime Vegas Star Trek convention would be moving to Bally's Hotel and Casino to account for a major renovation project that is set to begin at the Rio, which has been the home of the convention for the last decade. Last year, the Rio was sold by Caesars Entertainment to a development group who have announced that the Rio will be converted into a major Hyatt property. That renovation, which will include major changes to the casino floor and both of the towers, is set to begin next year and will make holding a convention amid all that chaos very difficult indeed. As a result, the convention will move to Bally's with the hope that once the Rio's renovation is complete, the convention might return there. Meanwhile, for fans interested in next April's new official Star Trek convention being hosted in Chicago by Reed Pop, tickets and hotels for Star Trek Mission Chicago convention to be held April 8th to 10th have now gone on sale. Marina, do you think you'll check out the new Bally's location for the Vegas convention next year? Are you setting your sights on Star Trek Mission Chicago, or do you think you'll try and manage attending both?
All of the above.
All of the above. That's what we like to hear.
Yes. So as far as Las Vegas, I am almost positive that it's still going to be something. It's going to be a version of the convention that we'll still recognize. Yes, it's going to be a different venue. We will have to deal with new meetup spots, for the usual events like the landing party or something. It's going to be a bit tricky because I'm sure people are going to be probably staying in different hotels rather than everybody's going to be just inside of one. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, there are definite pros to this kind of arrangement because we're going to be in the middle of the strip and you're going to have access to certainly many, many more food choices and things to do, such as shows at various hotels. And I'm saying it with so much excitement, but this is all obviously presuming that things will kind of not get worse with the current pandemic.
Yeah,
So
right.
hopefully that by then, which is in a year, things more or less come to their senses. As far as April, yes, I absolutely, I need to go because I have to check it out. I have gone to Star Trek Mission New York. It's always interesting to check out something new. It's going to be a bit tricky time-wise because it's very close to the Star Trek cruise, which is in early March. So I have like a month in between, but that's, I have to figure out how I'm going to swing it for, because, you still have to kind of work.
Sure, right. You need to do something to make money to pay for all these conventions.
Exactly. It's like you have to support the addiction. But at the same time, it's a thrilling trip, I think, because I personally enjoy Chicago. I've been there for various, for the smaller Chicago conventions before they stopped occurring, unfortunately. Not to mention the several work-related events. So it's going to be interesting. McCormick is a nice convention center, so I'm looking forward to seeing what ReedPop is going to put together for this event. It's still a 3-day convention, so I'm expecting certain similarities to the New York event, but at the same time, it's still, I can already see the chatter. People are getting excited because those who cannot make it to Vegas, the next event that more or less easy to access because the Star Trek cruise sold out, unfortunately, is certainly the Chicago convention. So it's going to be it's going to be an interesting experience as well. And let's see what else. Well, as far as conventions are concerned, we still have Destination Star Trek sort of hanging there in London in November. That's a tricky one because, again, it's all kind of dependent on what happens not only here, for those who are planning to travel from United States to UK, but also what's going to happen in UK because, as you know, UK no longer has any restrictions in place, and things are not going that great over there either. Yeah. So I don't know. The two big events for me last year were supposed to be Star Trek Las Vegas and Destination. Both were supposed to have, big Voyager celebrations. And DST still claims that they will have one. But it's kind of, I don't know. I have my hopes shrinking somewhat because I'm expecting that something similar to Vegas is going to happen once. If things do not get better, we will see sort of the mandates coming back and restrictions coming back, guests starting to cancel, unfortunately. But for now, November is still ways away. We do have Las Vegas to get through first.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do both. I think I'm definitely doing both. I'm definitely doing Chicago. I've got my hotel and my ticket booked for Chicago. Yeah,
same thing. I did it the moment they went live.
Did you spring for the VIP or did you go for the 3-day general?
I have to. It's not like I'm hanging my head in shame, but I did the VIP for New York, which partly was a great thing and partly was kind of like, it's a little bit too much like a Comic-Con VIP, which again, I have like strong vibes that something similar is probably going to be in Chicago, but then they might do things differently. We won't know until we get there. So, and same thing, my sister Olga is certainly she's like, we have to do it. It's a Star Trek convention. Come on.
Well, I'm going to be sitting in those VIP seats right alongside you because that's what I got too. Yeah, I decided I'd spring for it. It was one of those things where it's like, you know what? Since this, obviously there was the new one and I was there as well. But since this is sort of the first year of the kind of, that was 5 years ago. This is their first one of these. It's like I gotta try it, right? I would rather have it and decide at the end of the convention I didn't need it than be at the convention and be like, oh, I wish I had VIP.
Yeah, the way I looked at it is very often, like we were talking about Star Trek Las Vegas, at least, generically speaking at this point, because obviously things will be different next year and probably the following year. But normally people say, well, which tier of the ticket do I pick? They've never been to Star Trek Las Vegas. They've never been to sometimes any kind of convention. And very often I see the same advice pop up. It's like, if you can afford it, go for broke, do the all-inclusive, sort of the one that gives you the most, the little gifts and the seats and what have you. So I'm kind of treating it like this. We've had the break since Star Trek Mission New York. It's basically a new era of them, doing another premiere event with a different host company. So, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm trying to see I'm going to try and do as many things as they're advertising, whatever all those special events they're going to be, and try to get to as many panels as I can because I do enjoy going to panels a lot. So having a reserved seat, not guaranteed, unfortunately, but still, you get better chance of hopefully sitting closer to the stage with a VIP, and just try to get as full experience as possible. And then moving on to whatever the next city is going to be, we'll see if it makes sense to just do the regular 3-day general admission and it's going to be just as good an experience as a VIP. We'll see.
And we'll have to see about, STLV at Bally's next year. It is a smaller venue. I wonder if this is the moment where they are going to finally kind of claw back from the Wednesday to Sunday convention to more like a Thursday or a Friday to Sunday convention. I guess we should find that out next week, probably, when they announce the dates for when the next one will be.
Yeah, I'll be very surprised if it's a 5-day event.
Yeah, me too.
To be honest. Simply because, as you said, Bally's is a smaller venue. They do use it for, if I'm not mistaken, for the Supernatural conventions. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it's brand new to them. They've used it for other events. But just, goodness knows. I mean, considering that they still managed to get that many guests, so you can provide, perhaps Wednesday is not that full and Thursday sometimes might be creaky. But it's still, if they manage to get that crowd of guests, it kind of makes sense to spread it around.
I guess the question, though, is how many obviously they're unlicensed this year, but it does feel like a lot of those guests were kind of holdovers from contracts last year. How much is their guest recruitment talent because they're naturally talented at recruiting guests, and how much is it because CBS helped them out, and now CBS is not there to help them with that?
It's all so tricky. But I was thinking about, what type of guests would you expect to see at the Chicago convention or DST, the license, but where you don't get 100 people, and you can probably almost certainly say that you will not see one-shot cameos unless it's a very big name.
Right.
So those type of events, those types of guests, you probably only see in Las Vegas or any of the smaller signing type conventions around the country. So I think that's the value of STLV among several other things, such as actual reserved seating, for instance, is that some of these guests you will never see at the new licensed event. At least that's a suspicion I have. We'll probably have certainly the coverage of all the brand new stuff that's going to be happening. That's I'm sure probably the most exciting thing is that the types of announcements, sort of like Sir Patrick a couple of years ago with Picard announcement, that's going to be happening at the traveling show now. But I still see, if they will continue bringing on, the behind-the-scenes folks, those who produced and wrote and everything, I think that's still a wonderful thing to have as Trek experience.
All right, well, we've talked about the facts, and now let's speculate on what's going to happen in the future of Star Trek.
You make some very good points, Captain. But it's still all speculation and theory.
So each week, I and my guest give you a wish or theory we're nurturing about any of the shows or the future of the franchise. So Marina, let's hear your theory or wish for this week.
I have a wish, and it's a wish that's very straightforward and rather silly when I'm going to say.
Go for it.
I really want to know when Prodigy is going to come out.
Give
me the date. I am dying to know. And after seeing the teaser trailer, which blew my mind, we've seen sort of like preliminary, just what the characters look like, and it was like, yeah, that looks like great animation. But now we've seen how gorgeous this is, and the fact that they're not approaching it as just it's a kiddie show. It's not, it's a show. So I can't wait. I want to check it out myself. I don't have children, but I want to check it out myself. So I want to know what the date is. I suspect it's going to be sometime in the fall, probably after Lower Decks is done. So, but that's just an assumption based on the way they scheduled the previous multiple seasons, one after another, last year. So we shall see. But that's what I want to know.
Yeah, the smart money right now would be on October the 21st. As the release date, because that would be the week after the conclusion of Lower Decks season 2.
Do you think they might announce it during the Star Trek Day this year? Maybe it was something else.
That was when Star Trek Day was when they announced the season 3 Discovery premiere day, and that was great because then you were only a month out, and you were like, oh great, it's Lower Decks, and then immediately ticks over. So yeah, that's my guess for when they would announce it. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, exactly.
Well, I have a wish this week, which is just very simple. It caps off our conversation. I wish everybody who is attending the Star Trek convention in Las Vegas, Nevada next week, a safe, a happy, a fun experience. I'll be there. Come say hi. Those of us who are going, we all sort of need this opportunity to get away and to unwind, and it's going to be different and it's going to be weird. It'll also be our opportunity to say goodbye to the Rio after 10 years. I've been going to that hotel now, with the exception of last year when there wasn't one, for the 10 years it's been since I've been going to this convention, and it won't be the same after this year. So I'm looking forward to having the opportunity to at least kind of say goodbye to that lovable dump of a hotel before it becomes less of a dump, hopefully, once the renovations are done and it's turned into a Hyatt. So yeah, looking forward to it. And there may or may not be a show next week, depending on whether I can find time to record one at the convention. But otherwise, we'll share everything we learned, which probably won't be much, but we'll share anything we learned when we get back. Do you have a theory or a wish for Discovery, Picard, Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, or Prodigy that you'd like to share? Tweet them to me at WeeklyTrek or email them to me at weeklytrek@thetricordertransmissions.com, and I might feature your theory in a future episode. Well, that's all the time we've got for this episode of Weekly Trek. Thank you so much to my guest, Marina Kravchuk, for joining me today. Marina, how can people contact you if they want to continue the conversation?
You can find me on Facebook. I'm one of the admins for the Star Trek Convention Experiences group, and as well as recently restarted an official Star Trek missions group, because we had one created, a small group for the New York one, but now that the missions event suddenly expanded, probably be helpful to have maybe a separate spot for just the missions. But the Star Trek Experiences group is still covering pretty much every Trek experience out there, especially Vegas, and going forward, whatever we're gonna have. So, if anyone feels like joining, please do. There are a lot of veterans, and very happy to share any and all information that we have accumulated over the past decade. You can also find me on Twitter, and as Alex mentioned in the beginning, I co-host Shoreleaf, which is a podcast where my friend Jesse and I basically talk about the Star Trek convention experiences. Again, that phrase just keeps repeating, which you can find both on Facebook and on Twitter at Shoreleaf. And that's that. Hope that next week is going to be a fun one for everyone. Please be careful, wear masks, wash your hands, and stay safe.
And you can find this show on Twitter at WeeklyTrek and me at Alexander T. Perry. And if you enjoy the show, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast player of choice. And please check out some of the other great shows on the Tricorder Transmissions. And if you like our shows, please also consider becoming a Patreon of Tricorder. You can find at patreon.com/the Tricorder Transmissions. And lastly, if you're looking for Star Trek news on the internet, I hope you will turn to trekcore.com. Well, thank you, Marina. Thank you to all of my listeners. And until next week, live long and prosper.